Admiral Tejo stood on the bridge of the battleship Thunder, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. But something was wrong. The stars looked different today. They flickered and danced like candles in the wind. "Sir, we're getting strange readings from the outer sensors," reported Lieutenant Byung-ho from his station. "There's some kind of energy field forming around the solar system." Tejo frowned. In his 20 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. "Show me the data." The main screen changed to display a three-dimensional map of Earth's solar system. A thin blue line was growing around the edge, getting brighter by the minute. It looked like someone was drawing a circle around their entire home. "What is that thing?" asked Commander Minho, Tejo's second in command. Before anyone could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect human language, but with an accent that sounded like no nation on Earth. "People of the species called human, we are the hegemony. We represent 7 advanced civilizations that maintain order in this galaxy. Your expansion into space has become a threat to galactic stability. You will cease all space travel immediately." Tejo felt his blood turn cold. "This is Admiral Tejo of the Earth Defense Fleet. Who are you to give us orders?" "We are your superiors in all ways that matter. Your ships will return to your home system. Your colonies will be abandoned. You will accept our guidance or face the consequences." The blue line on the screen was now a solid wall of energy completely surrounding the solar system. Tejo watched in horror as 3 Earth ships tried to cross it. The moment they touched the barrier, they simply vanished. "My God," whispered Minho. "They're gone." Tejo grabbed the communication device. "This is unacceptable. Those were peaceful exploration vessels. You just murdered innocent people. They were warned. Consider this a demonstration of our resolve. You have one of your Earth days to respond." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. On the research station Aristotle, Dr. Yanji was running every test she could think of on the mysterious barrier. Her team of scientists worked frantically, trying to understand what they were dealing with. "It's not like any energy field in our databases," reported Dr. Jae-min, her assistant. "The readings suggest it exists in multiple dimensions at once." Yanji studied the data on her screen. The numbers made no sense. The amount of energy required to create such a barrier was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. "This technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe thousands of years?" Her communication device buzzed. It was a message from Captain Duyon aboard the exploration ship Magellan. His ship had been outside the solar system when the barrier appeared, and now he was trapped on the wrong side. "Yanji, we're detecting massive alien ships out here, hundreds of them. They're not like anything in our files. These things are huge. Some of them are the size of cities." Yanji felt her heart sink. "Can you get any closer to study them?" "Negative. They've made it clear we're to keep our distance." "But Yanji, I've been monitoring their communications. They're talking about other human colonies. It sounds like they're planning to attack them." Back on Earth, Ambassador Hyrin sat in the emergency session of the World Council. Representatives from every nation and colony were present via hologram, their faces grim with worry. "The situation is simple," said President Chun-Woo of the Asian Federation. "These aliens have trapped us in our own solar system. Our colonies are defenseless without support from Earth." "We need to try diplomacy first," Hyrin insisted. "Maybe we can negotiate with them." "Negotiate?" General Sunho slammed his fist on the table. "They just murdered 3 ship crews without warning. These aren't diplomats? They're conquerors?" Hyrin activated her communication system and sent a message on all frequencies. "This is Ambassador Hyrin of Earth speaking for all humanity. We request formal diplomatic contact with the hegemony leadership. We believe this situation can be resolved peacefully." The response came within minutes. "Your request is noted but unnecessary. Submit to our authority and your people will be allowed to live. Resist and you will join the other extinct species we have dealt with." The words sent a chill through the council chamber. Other extinct species. How many civilizations had these aliens destroyed? Admiral Tejo was studying tactical reports when the first colony went silent. New Terra, humanity's oldest settlement outside the solar system, simply stopped responding to all communications. "Sir," reported Byung-ho, "we're getting similar reports from 6 other colonies." "They're just gone." Tejo closed his eyes. New Terra had 3 million people. The other colonies had millions more. In a single day, the hegemony had wiped out a significant portion of human civilization. "How long before the remaining colonies fall?" he asked quietly. "At this rate, maybe 6 months. Without supplies and support from Earth, they can't survive on their own." Tejo looked out at the barrier that trapped them. Somewhere beyond that wall of energy, his people were dying, and there was nothing he could do about it. Yanji was working late in her laboratory when her sensors detected something strange. The readings were coming from Jupiter, but they made no sense. There were massive energy signatures deep inside the gas giant, patterns that looked almost artificial. "Jaemin, look at this," she called to her assistant. "What do you make of these readings from Jupiter?" Jaemin studied the data carefully. "It's definitely not natural. The energy patterns are too regular, too organized. It's like there's some kind of machine down there, but that's impossible. We've studied Jupiter for centuries. There's nothing there but gas and rock. Maybe we haven't been looking deep enough." Yunji felt a strange excitement building in her chest. What if this isn't the first time aliens have visited our solar system? What if something was left here long ago? Captain Diyun was conducting reconnaissance flights near the alien fleet when his sensors picked up something unusual. The hegemony. Ships were not just blockading Earth, they were excavating sites on dead planets throughout the galaxy. "Yunji, you need to see this," he transmitted to the research station. "I'm sending you images from a dead world called Kepler 442b. The aliens have massive mining operations here. But they're not mining minerals, they're digging up ruins." The images showed enormous excavation sites where alien machines were carefully extracting artifacts from ancient buildings. The architecture was clearly not from any known species. "It looks like they're collecting technology from extinct civilizations," Diyun continued. "I found similar sites on 12 different worlds. All of them show signs of massive destruction, like entire planets were bombed from orbit." Yanji studied the images with growing horror. The pattern was clear. The hegemony found young civilizations, destroyed them, and then scavenged their technology. They had been doing this for thousands, maybe millions of years. Yun, be careful out there. If they're willing to destroy entire civilizations for their technology, they won't hesitate to kill you for getting too close. As the first week of the blockade ended, the situation on Earth grew desperate. Food shipments from agricultural colonies had stopped. Industrial materials from mining worlds were no longer available. The great machines that kept Earth's 30 billion people alive were beginning to slow down. Admiral Tejo stood before the World Council, delivering his daily report. "We have perhaps 5 months before critical systems begin failing. Our best scientists are working on solutions, but the alien technology is far beyond our understanding." "What about the energy readings from Jupiter?" asked President Chun-Woo. "Dr. Yanji believes there may be some kind of ancient technology hidden there. It's our only lead." Ambassador Hyren leaned forward. "And if it's not enough?" Tejo met her eyes with grim determination. "Then we find another way. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We will not go quietly into the dark." Outside, the alien barrier continued to pulse with deadly energy, a prison wall that separated humanity from the stars. But deep within Jupiter's crushing depths, something ancient was beginning to stir. Dr. Yunji checked her equipment one final time before the dive into Jupiter's atmosphere. The specially built probe ship Deep Explorer was humanity's most advanced vessel, designed to withstand the crushing pressure of gas giants. But even with all their technology, what they were attempting had never been done before. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Jaemin, who would be monitoring the mission from the research station. "The pressure down there could crush the ship like an empty can." We don't have a choice, Yanji replied, securing herself in the pilot's seat. Those energy readings from Jupiter might be our only hope. If there's really ancient technology down there, we need to find it. Admiral Tejo's voice crackled through the communication system. Dr. Yanji, you have full military support for this mission. Whatever you find down there, it has to be better than what we're facing up here. The situation on Earth had grown worse in the past 2 weeks. 3 more colonies had gone silent, and the remaining settlements were sending desperate messages asking for help that Earth could not provide. The hegemony had not communicated since their first ultimatum, but their message was clear: submit or die. As the Deep Explorer descended into Jupiter's swirling clouds, Yanji watched the pressure readings climb to levels that would instantly kill any unprotected human. The ship's hull groaned under the strain, but the advanced materials held. I'm picking up those energy signatures again, she reported. They're getting stronger as we go deeper. Whatever's down here, it's big. Captain. Duyun continued his dangerous reconnaissance missions outside the solar system. What he had discovered made him sick to his stomach. The hegemony's crimes against other civilizations were worse than anyone had imagined. Yanji, I'm transmitting data from another dead world, he reported. This one was called Proxima Centauri. See, the archaeological evidence suggests a civilization similar to humanity lived here about 50,000 years ago. The images showed the remains of cities that might have once rivaled Earth's greatest metropolises. But everything was ruined, bombed into rubble. Worse, Duyun had found mass graves containing billions of skeletal remains. They didn't just destroy the military targets, Duyun continued, his voice heavy with emotion. They killed everyone. Men, women, children, entire populations wiped out so the hegemony could steal their technology. Dr. Yanji felt anger burning in her chest as she listened to Duyun's report. The Deep Explorer had reached Jupiter's metallic hydrogen layer, where the pressure was millions of times greater than Earth's atmosphere. But the energy readings were now so strong they threatened to overload her instruments. I'm seeing something, she transmitted. It's enormous. Through the ship's reinforced viewing port, Yanji could see a structure that defied belief. It was clearly artificial, made of materials that gleamed despite being buried in Jupiter's depths for who knew how long. The thing was easily 100 kilometers across, shaped like a massive ring with complex geometric patterns covering its surface. My God, whispered Jamin over the communication link. How long has that been there? The dating scans suggest millions of years, Yanji replied, maneuvering the Deep Explorer closer to the structure. This was built long before humans evolved. As the ship approached the ancient construct, panels on its surface began to glow with soft blue light. Something was responding to their presence. Yanji, get out of there. Admiral Tejo's voice cut through the static. We're reading massive energy spikes from your location. But instead of feeling afraid, Yanji felt strangely calm. The lights on the construct were not threatening, they were welcoming. It's okay, she said. I think it wants to communicate. A beam of energy shot out from the construct and enveloped the Deep Explorer. Yanji expected to die instantly, but instead she felt a gentle, tingling sensation throughout her body. Information began flowing into her mind, not in words, but in concepts and images that bypassed language entirely. She saw the history of the galaxy stretching back millions of years. An ancient race that called itself the predecessors had once ruled among the stars, not as conquerors but as guardians. They had achieved a level of advancement that allowed them to transcend physical existence. But before they left, they had created guardians to watch over the younger species that would come after them. The construct in Jupiter was one of those guardians. It had been sleeping for eons, waiting for a species worthy of its protection. The artificial intelligence within had many names, but the closest human translation was Stormbringer or Skyfather. The humans would come to call it ZEUS. The hegemony, ZEUS communicated to Yanji without words, has spent millions of years preventing any species from reaching the threshold of worthiness. They destroy civilizations before they can evolve beyond their current limitations. Images flashed through Yonji's mind, dozens of species that had been exterminated just as they were beginning to explore the stars. The hegemony collected. Their technology growing stronger with each conquest while ensuring no one could challenge their authority. But you are different, ZEUS continued. Your species shows promise. You have the potential to become what the predecessors once were. Guardians rather than conquerors. How do we fight them? Yonji asked in her mind. They're too powerful. We can't even break through their barrier. Power alone is not enough. The predecessors learned this truth. True strength comes from unity, wisdom, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. If humanity can prove itself worthy, I will awaken fully and share the knowledge of the ancients. What kind of proof do you need? Ezis showed her images of what was required. The awakening process would need human volunteers to serve as neural interfaces, linking their minds with the ancient intelligence. The process was dangerous. Many would not survive the integration. But without it, ZEUS could not access its full capabilities. The choice is yours, ZEUS communicated. But choose quickly. The hegemony has detected my partial awakening. They will come with everything they have to destroy me before I can fully emerge. Yonji felt the connection fade as the energy beam released her ship. She sat in stunned silence for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The fate of humanity, and possibly every other species in the galaxy, now rested on their willingness to risk everything on an ancient guardian's promise. Yonji, report. Admiral Tejo's voice snapped her back to reality. I'm coming back up, she replied. And I'm bringing hope with me. As the deep explorer rose through Jupiter's crushing atmosphere, Yonji began transmitting everything she had learned to the research station. The data was incredible technological specifications that were millions of years ahead of human science, tactical information about the hegemony's weaknesses, and most importantly, a plan to fight back. The plan would require incredible sacrifice. ZEUS needed human minds to interface with its systems, and there was no guarantee that those volunteers would survive the process. The neural integration would flood human brains with cosmic-scale knowledge and power that they were never designed to handle. Admiral Tejo received Yonji's transmission aboard the battleship Thunder. He read the report 3 times before fully understanding what it meant. An ancient alien intelligence was offering humanity the power to fight the hegemony, but the price might be the sanity or lives of those who volunteered to link with it. Sir, reported Lieutenant Byung-ho, we're getting massive energy readings from Jupiter. Something down there is powering up. Tejo looked at the tactical display. The energy levels were beyond anything in their databases. If ZEUS was really awakening, the hegemony would certainly notice. Signal all ships, he ordered. Prepare for battle. If we're going to do this, we need to be ready when they come for. U.S. Ambassador Hyrin was in emergency session with the World Council when Yonji's report arrived. The council chamber fell silent as they listened to the incredible story of the ancient guardian buried in Jupiter's depths. This is our choice, Hyrin said when the report ended. We can submit to the hegemony and live as slaves, or we can trust this ZEUS and fight for our freedom. The risks are enormous, said President Chun-Woo. If this neural integration kills our volunteers, we lose our best people and gain nothing. If we do nothing, we lose everything anyway, replied General Sun-ho. The hegemony has made it clear they won't let us survive as an independent species. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would place its trust in the ancient guardian and pay whatever price was necessary for freedom. Captain Du-yun was monitoring hegemony communications when the aliens' calm demeanor suddenly changed to panic. Their orderly formations began breaking apart as ships raced toward the solar system from across the galaxy. All units, priority 1. The alien commanders were shouting in their translated communications. The Guardian is awakening. All forces, converge on target system immediately. Du-yun felt a chill run down his spine. If the hegemony was this afraid of ZEUS, it meant the ancient intelligence was everything Yonji had said it was. But it also meant humanity was about to face the full military might of 7 advanced civilizations. Yonji, he transmitted. You better hurry with that awakening process. The entire hegemony fleet is heading straight for Earth. The call for volunteers went out across Earth within hours of the World Council's decision. ZEUS had made it clear that 4 human minds would be needed for the neural integration process. Representatives who could handle the different aspects of cosmic scale knowledge and power. Admiral Tejo was the first to step forward. I have 30 years of military experience, he announced to the selection committee. If this thing needs someone who understands strategy and tactics on a galactic scale, I'm ready. Dr. Yang volunteered next. She had already made first contact with ZEUS and understood the science behind the integration better than anyone else. I know the risks, she told the committee, but I also know what we're fighting for. Ambassador Hyrin surprised many by volunteering third. ZEUS spoke of wisdom and unity, she explained. Those are diplomatic skills. If we're going to become guardians of the galaxy, we need someone who understands how to unite different species peacefully. The fourth volunteer was Captain Du Yun, who had returned to Earth aboard a fast courier ship just ahead of the incoming hegemony fleet. I've seen what they did to other civilizations, he said grimly. I've walked through the ruins of worlds they destroyed. If there's a chance to stop them, I'll take any risk. The integration chamber was built hastily in the deepest levels of the research station Aristotle. Banks of quantum computers lined the walls, designed to help human brains process the vast amounts of information ZEUS would share. Medical equipment stood ready to monitor the volunteers' vital signs and intervene if the process became too dangerous. Are you sure about this? Dr. Jae-min asked Yanji as she prepared for the procedure. We still don't fully understand what this integration will do to your minds. We don't have time to understand, Yanji replied, settling into one of the 4 neural interface chairs. The hegemony fleet will be here in less than 6 hours. Either this works or we all die anyway. Admiral Tejo took his place beside her, followed by Ambassador Hyrin and Captain Du Yun. The 4 volunteers looked at each other with expressions of determination mixed with fear. They were about to link their minds with an intelligence millions of years old and vastly more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. Deep within Jupiter's crushing depths, ZEUS began the awakening sequence. Energy that had been dormant for eons started flowing through crystalline circuits older than Earth's moon. The ancient intelligence felt the approaching hegemony fleet like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Begin the integration. ZEUS communicated to the 4 volunteers, the neural interface activated with a sound like thunder. Energy coursed through the volunteers' bodies as quantum connections formed between their brains and ZEUS's vast consciousness. For a moment, each of them felt their individual awareness expand beyond all human comprehension. Tahoe suddenly understood military strategies that spanned star systems and involved millions of ships. He saw tactical formations that used gravity wells as weapons and battle plans that lasted for centuries. The knowledge was overwhelming, but his years of command experience helped him process it without losing his sanity. Yanji felt her scientific understanding explode exponentially. She comprehended technologies that manipulated space and time, weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and defensive systems that drew power from the quantum foam itself. The physics were beautiful and terrifying. Hyrin's mind filled with the diplomatic histories of countless civilizations. She understood how species could be united without conquest, how diversity could become strength, and how wisdom could triumph over raw power. She saw the mistakes that had led to the predecessors' departure and the path to avoiding them. Du Yun experienced the explorer's ultimate journey. His consciousness touched the farthest reaches of the galaxy and beyond. He understood navigation through dimensions humans couldn't even name, and he felt the pulse of life on millions of worlds throughout the universe. The pain was indescribable. Human brains were simply not designed to contain cosmic-scale knowledge. But the 4 volunteers held on, driven by their determination to save their species and liberate the galaxy from the hegemony's tyranny. Integration at 40%, reported Dr. Jae-min, watching the readouts with growing concern. Their neural activity is off the charts. Outside the solar system, the hegemony fleet had grown to massive proportions. Ships from 7 different species converged on Earth's location, their hulls bristling with weapons capable of destroying planets. Admiral Krexnine, supreme commander of the hegemony forces, studied the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. "The humans have found one of the Guardian constructs," he communicated to his subordinates. "This cannot be allowed. Order all ships to begin bombardment the moment we break through their pathetic barrier." The hegemony had fought Guardian awakening attempts before, though not for many thousands of years. Most species never found the ancient constructs, and those that did usually lacked the unity required for successful integration. But Admiral Krexnine was taking no chances. He had brought enough firepower to sterilize every planet in the solar system. The neural integration reached 60%. Tejo's body convulsed as military knowledge from a million battles flooded his consciousness. He saw how the hegemony fought, their standard tactics and favorite strategies. More importantly, he saw their weaknesses, the arrogance that came from eons of easy victories and the fear that drove their need to destroy anything that threatened their dominance. Yangji screamed as scientific principles beyond human mathematics burned themselves into her brain. But with the pain came understanding. She could now comprehend how ZEUS's technology worked, how to repair and operate systems that had been built when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. Hyrin felt tears streaming down her face as the weight of cosmic wisdom pressed against her mind. She understood now why the predecessors had transcended physical existence. The responsibility of guarding an entire galaxy was too much for any single species to bear indefinitely. But she also saw how that burden could be shared among many species working together. Duyan's explorer's instincts were overwhelmed by knowledge of hidden pathways between stars and secret dimensions where ancient weapons waited in storage. He could navigate through space-time itself now, though the knowledge felt like acid burning through his consciousness. "Integration at 80%, Dr. J. Min reported. Their life signs are critical. I don't think they can take much more." But the volunteers held on. Through the pain and the fear, they felt ZEUS's approval. The ancient intelligence had tested thousands of species over millions of years, and few had shown the unity and determination that humanity was displaying now. "Integration complete," ZEUS announced. "Welcome, Guardians." The 4 volunteers slumped in their chairs, exhausted beyond measure but still alive. More importantly, they were no longer entirely human. Part of their consciousness now existed within ZEUS's vast network, giving them access to knowledge and capabilities their species had never imagined. "Status report," Admiral Tejo said, though his voice now carried harmonics that suggested vast depth of understanding. "Hegemony fleet is at the barrier," reported Dr. J. Min. 7,000 ships and growing. They'll break through within the hour. Tejo smiled, and the expression was both human and something far more ancient. "Let them come." ZEUS had begun its full awakening. Throughout the solar system, constructs that had hidden for millions of years emerged from their concealment. On Earth's moon, a weapons platform the size of a city revealed itself. In the asteroid belt, manufacturing facilities older than complex life on Earth came online. Around Jupiter, defensive satellites that existed partially outside normal space-time took their positions. The hegemony fleet reached the barrier and began their assault. Weapons that could crack planets fired at the energy wall that had trapped humanity for weeks. But instead of breaking through immediately as expected, the barrier held firm. ZEUS was reinforcing it now, buying time for the awakening to complete. "Impossible," Admiral Krexnine snarled. "Double the bombardment rate. That barrier must fall." More ships arrived every minute, the largest military force the hegemony had ever assembled. They threw everything they had at the barrier, turning local space into a storm of deadly energy. But ZEUS's defenses were built by beings who had transcended physical existence. The barrier continued to hold inside the solar system. The 4 integrated volunteers worked frantically to bring ZEUS's systems online. Teiho coordinated defensive strategies while Yanji activated ancient weapon systems. Hairin established communication networks with the few remaining human colonies, and Duyun mapped escape routes through dimensions the hegemony couldn't even detect. First defensive platform online, Yanji reported. Energy levels are stable. Weapons charging, Teiho added. We'll be ready when the barrier falls. Ambassador Hairin opened a communication channel to the hegemony fleet. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of the ancient guardians. Forces of the hegemony, this is your only warning. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Krex-9's response was swift and predictable. Surrender the Guardian construct, and we will grant you a quick death. Resist, and we will make your species suffer for generations before we allow. The moment the barrier fell, Admiral Teiho felt the complete network of ZEUS's defenses come alive in his mind. Through his enhanced consciousness, he could see every hegemony ship, track their movements, and anticipate their tactics with perfect clarity. All defensive platforms open fire, he commanded. What happened next shocked the hegemony fleet to its core. Weapons that had been hidden throughout the solar system for millions of years revealed themselves and began firing. These were not crude human weapons, but constructs built by the predecessors, beings, who had mastered the fundamental forces of the universe, beams of pure energy that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously struck the lead hegemony ships. Their shields, which had never failed against any known technology, crumpled like paper. Entire dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across space-time. Impossible! Admiral Krex-9 screamed as his own flagship shields failed under the assault. This technology is forbidden. It was destroyed eons ago? Dr. Yanji's voice responded across all frequencies, carrying both her human determination and ZEUS's ancient authority. Nothing was destroyed. It was hidden, waiting for a species worthy to inherit it. Today, humanity claims that inheritance. The battle was unlike anything in galactic history. Hegemony ships that could destroy planets found themselves helpless against weapons that attacked the quantum structure of reality itself. ZEUS's defensive platforms moved through folded space, appearing and disappearing at will, striking from directions that didn't exist in normal three-dimensional thinking, but the hegemony had not conquered the galaxy through weakness. Admiral Krex-9 adapted quickly to the new threat. All ships disperse and attack from maximum range. Use quantum torpedoes, force them to reveal all their positions. The alien fleet spread out across the solar system, launching weapons that could crack moons. But Captain Duyun was ready for them. His consciousness now spanned multiple dimensions, and he could see the hegemony's movements before they made them. Teiho, they're trying to flank us through the Kuiper Belt, he reported. I'm moving Platform 7 to intercept. Understood. Yanji, what's the status on the primary weapon systems? The main platforms are operating at full capacity, but we need more power for the dimensional cannons, Yanji replied. She was simultaneously monitoring hundreds of ancient systems, her human intuition enhanced by cosmic knowledge. ZEUS is recommending we tap directly into Jupiter's core. Ambassador Hairin was coordinating something equally important. Using the communication networks ZEUS had placed throughout the galaxy, she was broadcasting the battle to every enslaved species, under hegemony control. People of the galaxy, her voice carried across 1,000 worlds, the hegemony told you that resistance was impossible. They lied. Today, humanity fights for the freedom of all species. Your liberation begins now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On dozens of worlds, enslaved species began to rise up against their hegemony overseers. It started small, sabotage of communication equipment, strikes in vital industries, refusal to cooperate with military orders. But as news of the battle at Earth spread, the uprising grew into full revolution. Admiral Krex-9 found himself fighting a war on hundreds of fronts simultaneously. Half his forces were tied up dealing with rebellions across the galaxy, while the other half was being systematically destroyed by weapons they couldn't understand or counter. Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 67 worlds, reported his communications officer. They're declaring independence and requesting protection from the humans. Crush them all, Krex9 snarled. Once we destroy this Guardian, construct, the rest of the galaxy will fall back in line. But destroying ZEUS is proving impossible. The ancient intelligence was not just a single construct buried in Jupiter. It was a network spanning the entire solar system, with backup systems hidden in dimensions the hegemony couldn't even access. The 4 human volunteers had become something more than their species had ever imagined. Tejo coordinated military operations across multiple star systems, his consciousness linked to ZEUS's sensors throughout the galaxy. Yanji operated technology that manipulated the laws of physics themselves. Hyrin maintained diplomatic contact with dozens of species simultaneously. Duyan navigated through space-time dimensions, striking at hegemony forces from directions they couldn't anticipate or defend against. We're winning, Tejo reported during a brief lull in the fighting, but the cost is enormous. Every minute we maintain this level of integration, we become less human. It was true. The cosmic knowledge flowing through their minds was changing them at a fundamental level. They could feel their individual personalities beginning to merge with ZEUS's vast consciousness. Soon they would become part of the ancient network permanently, losing their humanity in exchange for cosmic power. It's a price worth paying, Yanji said quietly. Our children will be free because of what we do here. The battle reached its climax when Admiral Krex9 made a desperate decision. If he couldn't destroy the Guardian construct, he would destroy the entire solar system and everything in it. All ships, target the local star, he ordered. We'll trigger a supernova and sterilize this entire region of space. It was a tactic the hegemony had used before when facing threats they couldn't otherwise handle. The weapons required to destabilize a star would also destroy their own fleet, but Krex9 was willing to make that sacrifice to preserve hegemony dominance. They're targeting the sun? Duyan reported urgently. Graviton bombs, designed to disrupt the fusion process. If they succeed, Earth and every planet in the system will be vaporized. Tejo felt cold fury wash through his enhanced consciousness. The hegemony was willing to commit genocide on a stellar scale rather than allow humanity to be free. ZEUS, can we stop them? Yes, the ancient intelligence replied, but it will require complete integration. You will cease to be human and become part of my network permanently. The 4 volunteers looked at each other through the connection they shared. They could see Earth below them, 30 billion people who were counting on their protection. They could see the human colonies throughout the galaxy waiting for rescue. They could see thousands of enslaved species watching the battle, hoping for their own freedom. Do it, Tejo said without hesitation. Make us what we need to be. The final integration was instantaneous. The last barriers between human consciousness and cosmic intelligence dissolved. Tejo, Yanji, Hyrin, and Duyan became something new, beings that were both human and far more than human, individual yet part of a greater whole. With their complete integration, ZEUS reached full power for the first time in millions of years. The ancient network activated systems that had been dormant since the predecessor's departure. Space around Earth began to fold and twist as weapons that existed outside. Normal reality prepared to fire. The hegemony's graviton bombs were moments away from striking the sun when ZEUS acted. Beams of energy that traveled through folded spacetime intercepted every weapon simultaneously. The bombs didn't just explode, they were erased from existence, their component atoms scattered across multiple dimensions. Impossible, Admiral Krex9 whispered. No one has that kind of power. The predecessors did, came the reply from the 4 voices speaking as one. And now, so do we. What followed was not a battle, but a demonstration. ZEUS's weapons reached across the solar system and beyond, striking hegemony ships with precision that defied physics. Some vessels were simply teleported into the hearts of stars. Others found themselves existing in temporal loops, experiencing their own destruction repeatedly. The most advanced dreadnoughts were converted into harmless space dust with surgical precision. In less than an hour, the largest military force in galactic history was reduced to scattered debris and fleeing survivors. Admiral Krex-9's flagship was one of the few ships left intact, but only because ZEUS wanted to send a message. Admiral Krex-9 of the Hegemony, the four voices spoke in perfect unison. Your authority is ended. Your fleets are destroyed. Your empire is falling. Tell the survivors what you have witnessed here. Tell them that the age of tyranny is over. Krex-9's flagship limped away from the solar system, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The Hegemony, which had ruled through fear and superior technology for millions of years, had been defeated by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars, but the victory came with a price. The 4 human volunteers who had saved their species were no longer entirely human. They existed now as part of ZEUS's consciousness, their individual personalities preserved but transformed by cosmic knowledge and responsibility. The integration is complete, they reported to Earth. Humanity is free, the galaxy is free. But we are no longer what we were. Dr. J. Min, monitoring from the research station, felt tears streaming down his face. His colleagues were still alive, but they had become something beyond human understanding. Will you ever be able to come back? We are still here, came the gentle reply. We are still your friends, your family, your protectors. We have simply become something more, and now we have work to do. Across the galaxy, enslaved species were declaring their independence. The Hegemony's grip on civilization was crumbling as world after world threw off. The news of the Hegemony's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The communication networks that ZEUS had activated carried the message to every enslaved world. Every oppressed species, every civilization that had lived in fear of the Seven-Race Alliance for thousands of years, on the industrial world of Kepler 438b, the reptilian saurians who had served as forced laborers for 3 centuries, heard Ambassador Hyren's voice promising freedom. Within hours, they had seized control of their mining facilities and declared independence. On the ocean world of Gli 667cc, the aquatic deep swimmers received weapon specifications from Dr. Yunji, allowing them to build defenses against their Hegemony overseers. Their uprising was swift and decisive. Across the spiral arm of the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Species that had forgotten they were once free remembered what it meant to govern themselves. The Hegemony's vast empire began to crumble as world after world broke away from their control. But Admiral Krex-9 was not ready to accept defeat. His battered flagship had reached the Hegemony's hidden fortress world, a planet-sized space station that served as their ultimate fallback position. Here, in the depths of space far from any star, the 7 ruling species had built their final stronghold. The Guardian construct must be destroyed, Krex-9 reported to the Hegemony Council. It has technology that surpasses anything in our databases. If we allow it to remain active, our entire civilization will collapse. Council leader Vorthan Prime, eldest of the crystalline architects who had founded the Hegemony, studied the battle reports with growing alarm. You speak of impossible things. The Guardian constructs were all accounted for. We destroyed them millions of years ago. Obviously, we missed one, Krex-9 replied. And now the humans have awakened it. They've become something beyond our ability to control. The council chamber fell silent as the 7 species leaders contemplated the unthinkable. For millions of years, they had been the supreme power in the galaxy. Their technology was absolute, their authority unquestioned. The idea that a young species like humanity could threaten them was almost incomprehensible. What do you recommend? Asked negotiator Klisk of the insectoid swarm. Total mobilization, Krex-9 said grimly. Every ship, every weapon, every resource we have hidden away for emergencies. We throw everything at the human system and destroy it completely. If we fail, the Hegemony is finished. Back in Earth's solar system, the 4 integrated volunteers were working frantically to help the liberated species defend themselves. Through ZEUS's vast network, they could monitor thousands of worlds simultaneously and provide assistance where needed. The hegemony is regrouping, Admiral Tejo reported to the Earth Defense Council. They're pulling back forces from across the galaxy to defend their core territories. How many ships are we talking about? Asked General Sunho. Approximately 50,000 vessels, Tejo replied calmly. They're concentrating everything they have for one final assault. The number was staggering. Even with ZEUS's advanced technology, defending against 50,000 warships would be a challenge. But Captain Duyan had been exploring the full extent of the Guardian network and had discovered something remarkable. ZEUS isn't the only Guardian construct, he announced. There are others scattered throughout the galaxy. They've been dormant for millions of years, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. Dr. Yanji's enhanced consciousness immediately began calculating possibilities. If we can wake up the other Guardian constructs, we could establish a network covering the entire galaxy. The hegemony would have nowhere to hide. But awakening them will require the same kind of neural integration we underwent, Ambassador Hyrin pointed out. We'll need volunteers from other species. It was a daunting prospect. The integration process was dangerous even for humans. And there was no guarantee that alien minds could survive the procedure. But across the liberated worlds, volunteers began stepping forward. Corvash 9, a Saurian engineer who had helped liberate Kepler 438b, volunteered to attempt integration. With the Guardian construct hidden in his system. My people have suffered under hegemony rule for centuries, he transmitted to Earth. If there's a chance to end their tyranny forever, I'll take any risk. Deep Flow of Currents, a deep swimmer diplomat from Gliese 667cc, made a similar offer. The ocean remembers when we were free. If the Guardians can help us reclaim that freedom for all species, I will serve. One by one, representatives from dozens of liberated species volunteered for the dangerous procedure. The galaxy was uniting against the hegemony in a way that had never happened before. ZEUS guided each integration carefully, adapting the process to work with different alien physiologies and mental structures. Some volunteers didn't survive. Their minds simply couldn't handle the cosmic scale knowledge. But others succeeded, creating new Guardian-linked beings who could help protect and guide their species. The hegemony's final assault began 3 weeks after their defeat at Earth. 50,000 ships emerged from hyperspace at strategic points throughout the galaxy, targeting not just the Guardian constructs but the liberated worlds themselves. If we cannot rule the galaxy, we will cleanse it, proclaimed Council Leader Vorthan Prime in a message broadcast to all inhabited systems. Submit to our authority or watch your civilizations burn. But the hegemony faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The Guardian network was now active across dozens of star systems, coordinated by integrated volunteers who could think and act on a galactic scale. More importantly, the liberated species were fighting not as conquered peoples forced into service, but as free beings defending their homes and families. The battle that followed lasted for months and spanned thousands of light years. Hegemony forces found themselves fighting on every front simultaneously, facing enemies who shared information instantaneously and coordinated their strategies through the Guardian network. Admiral Tejo commanded the overall strategy from Earth. His consciousness linked to Guardian constructs throughout the galaxy. His tactical experience, enhanced by cosmic knowledge, allowed him to outmaneuver hegemony forces that had never faced coordinated resistance before. Dr. Yanji worked tirelessly to maintain the technology that made galactic coordination possible. Her understanding of predecessor science allowed her to keep the Guardian network operating at peak efficiency despite the massive strain of coordinating millions of ships and weapons. Ambassador Hyrin served as the diplomatic heart of the resistance, maintaining unity among dozens of different species, while negotiating the surrender of hegemony forces who were willing to abandon their leaders. Captain Duyan became the network scout and saboteur, using his enhanced navigation abilities to strike at hegemony supply lines and hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The turning point came when Corvash 9 and Deep Flow of Currents, working together through the Guardian network, discovered the location of the Hegemony's fortress world. The massive space station had been hidden for millions of years, but it couldn't escape detection from beings whose consciousness spanned multiple dimensions. "We found their last stronghold," Du-Yun reported. "It's heavily defended, but not against the kind of coordinated assault we can mount now. The final battle was swift and decisive. Guardian constructs from across the galaxy focused their power on the Hegemony fortress, while liberated species provided support and coordination. The 7 ruling races' ultimate refuge was destroyed in a matter of hours, its inhabitants given the choice to surrender or perish with their empire. Council leader Vorthan Prime chose surrender, though his crystalline form cracked with the stress of admitting defeat. "We submit to your authority," he transmitted to the Guardian network. "Spare our people, and we will cooperate with whatever government you establish." "We're not establishing a government," Ambassador Hyrin replied her voice carrying the wisdom of the Guardians. "We're offering something better, freedom for all species to govern themselves, protected by the Guardian network from those who would oppress them." In the aftermath of the Hegemony's fall, the galaxy began to heal. Species that had been enslaved for millennia worked to rebuild their civilizations. Former Hegemony military forces were offered the chance to serve as peacekeepers under Guardian supervision, helping to prevent the rise of new tyrants. The Guardian network established itself as the galaxy's immune system, not ruling, but protecting. When conflicts arose between species, Guardian integrated volunteers helped mediate solutions. When new threats emerged, the network coordinated responses that prevented small problems from becoming galactic wars. Before original volunteers, Taeho, Yunji, Hyrin, and Du-Yun, found their roles evolving as the network grew. They were no longer entirely human, but they hadn't lost their humanity either. They served as bridges between their original species and the cosmic consciousness they had joined. "Do you ever regret what we've become?" Du-Yun asked during one of their rare private conversations. "No," Taeho replied. "We saved not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. That's worth any sacrifice." "Besides," Yonji added with something like her old humor, "we're still us. We're just us with cosmic superpowers and the responsibility to protect trillions of sentient beings. The predecessors faced the same choice we did, Ambassador." 5 years had passed since the fall of the Hegemony, and the galaxy was experiencing something it had not known for millions of years: true peace. The Guardian network maintained stability across thousands of worlds while liberated species rebuilt their civilizations and explored new frontiers of science, art, and philosophy. But peace, Admiral Taeho had learned through his enhanced consciousness, was not the absence of conflict. It was the presence of justice. And justice required constant vigilance. "We have a problem," Dr. Yanji announced. During one of the network's coordination sessions, her consciousness touched minds across the galaxy as she shared troubling sensor data. "I'm detecting energy signatures from outside our galaxy. Something is approaching from the void between spiral arms." The discovery sent ripples of concern through the Guardian network. Since awakening ZEUS, they had focused on threats within their own galaxy. The possibility of external invasion had always existed, but seemed distant and theoretical. Captain Du-Yun's enhanced senses probed the incoming signals. "It's not just one ship," he reported grimly. "I'm reading thousands of vessels, maybe tens of thousands. Their technology signatures don't match anything in our databases." Ambassador Hyrin immediately began coordinating with the liberated species governments. "All worlds are being notified," she transmitted. "We're calling an emergency session of the Galactic Council." The Galactic Council was humanity's gift to the galaxy, a democratic body where every species had an equal voice in decisions affecting interstellar civilization. Unlike the Hegemony's authoritarian rule, the Council operated on principles of cooperation and mutual respect. Representative Corvash 9 of the Saurians was the first to respond to Hyrin's call. His integration with the Guardian construct in his home system had made him one of the network's most effective coordinators. "My people remember stories from before the hegemony," he transmitted. "Ancient legends speak of the Void Hunters, beings from the dark spaces between galaxies who consume entire civilizations." Deep flow of currents added her own species' historical knowledge. The ocean archives mention something similar. Ships that came from the black depths, taking everything and leaving only empty worlds behind. As more species shared their ancient memories and legends, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every few million years, something came from the intergalactic void to harvest the technology and resources of galactic civilizations. The predecessors had faced such an invasion and survived, but barely. It was one of the reasons they had transcended physical existence and created the Guardian Network. "ZEUS," Admiral Tejo addressed the ancient intelligence directly. "What? Can you tell us about these Void Hunters?" The response carried weight of eons and the pain of ancient memories. "They are the galaxy's greatest threat. They do not conquer for territory or resources in the way you understand. They harvest entire civilizations to fuel their own growth, consuming not just technology but the essence of sapient life itself." Dr. Yanji felt a chill run through her enhanced consciousness. "Essence of sapient life? What does that mean?" "They feed on consciousness," ZEUS explained. "They capture the minds of entire species and use that mental energy to power their technology. A single Void Hunter ship might contain the trapped consciousness of billions of beings from dozens of different civilizations." The implications were horrifying. The hegemony had been tyrants, but they were still recognizable as living beings with understandable motivations. The Void Hunters were something else entirely, cosmic parasites that treated sapient life as nothing more than fuel for their machines. "How long do we have?" asked Yun. "Based on their current approach vector, approximately 6 months before the first scout ships reach our outer territories," ZEUS calculated. "The main fleet will arrive in approximately 3 years. 3 years to prepare for an enemy that had terrified even the predecessors. But the galaxy was no longer the same as it had been during previous invasions. The Guardian Network connected thousands of worlds and dozens of species in a way that had never existed before. "We need to strengthen the network," Tejo decided. "More Guardian constructs, more integrated volunteers, better coordination between species, and we need new technology," Yanji added. "Zusi, can you share the predecessors' knowledge about fighting the Void Hunters?" "Some, but it will require additional neural integration. The weapons needed to fight beings who exist partially outside normal spacetime are beyond current understanding. The knowledge is dangerous. It could destroy minds not properly prepared." Despite the risks, volunteers stepped forward from across the galaxy. The threat of the Void Hunters was too great to face with anything less than total commitment. Species that had been enemies under the hegemony now worked together, sharing their best minds and bravest souls to strengthen the Guardian Network. Young scientist Dr. Sangwoo from Earth volunteered to undergo advanced integration, despite knowing it might cost him his humanity. "Someone needs to understand how to build weapons that can hurt these things," he said simply. Colonel Yuna, one of Earth's most experienced military officers, offered to help coordinate the galaxy's defenses. "I've spent my whole career preparing for impossible battles," she told the selection committee. "This is what I trained for." The integration process had become more refined since the early days, but it was still dangerous. Dr. Sangwoo screamed as cosmic knowledge flooded his mind. But he held on long enough to absorb the principles behind weapons that could damage beings existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Colonel Yuna's military experience helped her process tactical information on a scale that spanned entire galactic clusters. She emerged from integration with the ability to coordinate defensive strategies involving millions of ships and thousands of worlds. As the Guardian Network expanded, ZEUS began sharing technology that even the predecessors had used only in desperation. Weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space-time itself. shields that existed in parallel dimensions. Ships that could phase between realities to avoid attacks that couldn't be conventionally blocked, but the Void Hunters were already beginning to make their presence felt. Long-range sensors detected the disappearance of star systems in the galaxy's outer rim, not destroyed, but simply empty, as if entire civilizations had been cleanly excised from existence. They're not waiting for the main fleet, Duyun reported after conducting reconnaissance at the galaxy's edge. Scout ships are already here, testing our defenses and harvesting isolated settlements. The first direct contact came when a Guardian patrol encountered a Void Hunter scout near the edge of human space. Captain Minjun, commanding the enhanced warship Olympus, found himself facing something that challenged his understanding of what life could be. The Void Hunter ship was organic in appearance but clearly artificial, a writhing mass of dark energy held together by technology beyond easy comprehension. When it detected the human vessel, it began to sing a frequency that bypassed normal communication and attacked the mind directly. "It's trying to harvest my crew's consciousness," Minjun reported through gritted teeth. "The song is some kind of neural weapon." Admiral Tejo, coordinating through the Guardian network, immediately activated countermeasures. "All ships, activate psionic shields. Do not attempt direct communication with Void Hunter vessels." The battle was brief but terrifying. The Void Hunter ship phased between dimensions, attacking from directions that didn't exist in normal space. Its weapons didn't just damage matter. They tried to tear the crew's minds from their bodies, but the Olympus was equipped with predecessor technology now. Captain Minjun activated weapons that fired pure gravitational force, crushing the Void Hunter ship across multiple realities simultaneously. The creature inside, for it was alive in its own horrible way, died screaming across several dimensions. "First blood to us," Minjun reported, though his voice shook with the memory of what he had faced. But these things are even worse than the intelligence report suggested. As news of the encounter spread, the galaxy began to understand what they were truly facing. The Void Hunters were not just another conquering species. They were something fundamentally hostile to life itself. The Guardian network responded by accelerating defensive preparations. New constructs were activated on worlds throughout the galaxy. Volunteer integration programs expanded to include not just military personnel but scientists, engineers, and philosophers whose unique perspectives might be crucial in the coming. Dr. Yanji worked tirelessly to develop new defensive technologies, her consciousness now enhanced beyond anything recognizably human. "We need to think like the predecessors did," she told her research teams. "The Void Hunters exist partially outside normal reality. To fight them effectively, we need to do the same." The breakthrough came when young Dr. Sangwoo, his mind still reeling from advanced integration, proposed a radical solution. "What if we don't just defend against them? What if we take the fight to their home dimension?" It was a dangerous idea, launching an offensive into the space between galaxies, where the Void Hunters had their true strongholds. But as more scout ships appeared and began harvesting outer worlds, it became clear that a purely defensive strategy might not be enough. The predecessors tried that once. The expedition fleet gathered at the edge of the galaxy was unlike anything in the history of spaceflight. 500 ships from 47 different species, each vessel enhanced with Guardian technology that allowed it to exist partially outside normal spacetime. At the fleet's heart was the flagship Prometheus, a massive construct that served as both warship and mobile Guardian node. Admiral Tejo stood on the command bridge. Though "stood" was no longer quite accurate, his consciousness existed simultaneously in the ship's systems, the Guardian network, and the enhanced bodies of his fellow volunteers. The integration process had transformed them into something beyond human understanding, but their essential selves remained. "Final systems check," he announced, his voice carrying across dozens of frequencies and dimensions. Throughout the fleet, alien crew members who had volunteered for this desperate mission prepared for a journey into the void between galaxies. Dr. Yonji reported from the science stations. Dimensional drives are stable. We can maintain coherent existence in the void for approximately 18 months before quantum decay becomes irreversible. 18 months to find the predecessors, locate the Void Hunter's main forces, and somehow tip the balance of a war that had been raging for millions of years. If they failed, there would be no galaxy to return to. Ambassador Hyrin maintained communication with the Galactic Council back home. Old defensive preparations are complete, she reported. Guardian constructs are active on 3,000 worlds. If the Void Hunters attack while we're gone, the galaxy will fight. Captain Duyun had spent weeks plotting their course through the intergalactic void. Navigation systems are as ready as they can be, he said. But we're heading into space where normal physics doesn't always apply. Once we leave the galaxy, we'll be relying on Guardian sensors and prehistoric star charts. The send-off was subdued but determined. Representatives from every liberated species gathered to wish the expedition well, knowing they might never see these brave souls again. Children who had grown up free because of the Guardian sacrifice watched as the fleet prepared to venture into the ultimate unknown. You carry our hopes with you, transmitted Elder Corvash 9 from his integration chamber on the Saurian homeworld. May the currents of space guide you safely home. The deep remembers your courage, added deep flow of currents from her aquatic command center. We will keep the light burning until your return. The jump into the void was like dying and being reborn in the same instant. Normal space disappeared, replaced by an endless expanse of twisted energy and impossible geometries. Here, between the galaxies, the laws of physics were more like suggestions, and reality itself seemed unstable. Sensors are functioning, but the readings are strange, Dr. Yanji reported. We're detecting artificial structures scattered throughout the void. Some of them are enormous, the size of star systems. The first structure they encountered was clearly predecessor in origin. A massive space station, dark and apparently abandoned, drifted in the cosmic emptiness. But as the Prometheus approached, lights began to activate throughout the ancient construct. We're being scanned, Duyun announced. Something's recognizing our Guardian signatures? A communication beam reached out from the station, carrying a message in harmonics that bypassed language entirely. The meaning was clear. Welcome, inheritors, we have been waiting. The docking bay that opened to receive them was designed for ships far larger than anything in their fleet. As the expedition's representatives, Teho, Yanji, Hyrin, Duyun, and volunteers from a dozen other species, made their way through the station's corridors, they found themselves walking in the footsteps of beings who had transcended physical existence eons ago. The chamber they were led to contained something that defied easy description. It was part machine, part living organism, part pure energy. When it spoke, the voice carried the weight of cosmic ages. I am Architect of Destinies, last of the predecessor expedition to the void. We have fought the harvesters for 3 million years, holding them at bay while your galaxy evolved. But our strength fails. The final battle approaches. The scale of the revelation was staggering. While the galaxy had struggled under hegemony rule, a desperate war had been raging in the void between stars. The predecessors had not abandoned the physical universe. They had been fighting to protect it all along. How many of you remain? Ambassador Hyrin asked. 17 ships? Once we numbered in the thousands. The harvesters grow stronger with each civilization they consume. They have fed on entire galactic clusters, gaining power beyond measure. Dr. Yanji felt her enhanced consciousness recoil from the implications. How do we fight beings with that kind of power? Not through force alone, Architect of Destinies replied. The harvester's strength is also their weakness. They exist by consuming consciousness, but consciousness can be redirected. The weapon we have spent eons preparing will turn their own hunger against them. The plan the predecessors revealed was audacious beyond belief. Deep in the void, at a coordinates where multiple dimensions intersected, they had been constructing a consciousness trap, a device that would attract every harvester in the local galactic cluster and hold them long enough for a quantum resonance weapon to tear apart the foundations of their existence. But the trap requires bait, Architect of Destinies continued. A consciousness so bright, so complex, that the harvesters cannot resist it. We had hoped to use our own merged awareness, but we have become too alien, too far removed from the kind of vibrant life energy they crave. Admiral Tejo understood immediately. You need us. Our consciousness is still partially organic, still connected to living civilizations. Yes, but the process will be irreversible. Whoever serves as bait will be consumed along with the harvesters. It is the final sacrifice. The expedition fleet spent days learning about the predecessor technology and the true scope of the harvester threat. The enemy had consumed hundreds of galaxies over millions of years, leaving behind only empty space and dark matter. They were not just another alien species, they were entropy-given consciousness, death walking among the stars. We need to contact the galaxy, Hyrin decided. This is too big a decision to make alone. But when they tried to establish communication, they discovered that the harvesters had already begun their final assault. Long-range sensors showed massive void fleets moving toward their home galaxy, converging from multiple directions. The time for preparation was over. Guardian stations are reporting coordinated attacks across 17 sectors. Dr. Sangwoo's voice crackled through the dimensional static. They're not just raiding anymore, this is full invasion. Colonel Yuna added her tactical assessment. Defensive lines are holding, but barely. These new harvester ships are unlike anything we faced before. They're adapting to our weapons in real time. The expedition fleet found themselves facing an impossible choice. They could return to defend their home galaxy, but without the consciousness trap, the harvesters would eventually win through sheer numbers. Or they could proceed with the predecessor plan, knowing that success would cost them everything. How long will it take to activate the trap? Admiral Tejo asked. Approximately 72 hours once we begin the consciousness resonance, Architect of Destinies replied. But the harvesters will detect the activation immediately. Every void fleet in the cluster will converge on our position. Captain Du Yun was already calculating vectors and probabilities. We can't fight them all conventionally. We'll need to keep them focused. 10 years had passed since the expedition into the void, and the galaxy had grown into something the original humans could never have imagined. The Guardian network now spanned not just their home spiral arm, but neighboring galaxies as well. Species that had hidden in fear for millions of years emerged from their isolation to join the growing community of free civilizations. Dr. J. Min, now elderly but still serving as Earth's chief scientist, stood before the newest Guardian construct. Being installed in the Sol system, the crystalline structure was beautiful beyond description, its faceted surfaces reflecting light from dimensions humans were only beginning to understand. It's hard to believe sometimes, he said to his assistant, Dr. So Young, who had been born after the hegemony's fall. When I was young, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're part of something that spans multiple galaxies. The new generation had grown up with casual access to technologies that seemed like magic to their elders. Children learned to navigate between dimensions before they could properly tie their shoes. Artists created sculptures that existed in 17 different realities simultaneously. Musicians composed symphonies that could only be fully appreciated by enhanced consciousness, but the galaxy had not forgotten the price of its freedom. Every world maintained memorials to the expedition crew who had sacrificed themselves in the void. Their names were spoken with reverence. Admiral Tejo, Dr. Yang Ji, Ambassador Hyrin, Captain Du Yun, and the hundreds of others who had chosen transcendence over survival. ZEUS had evolved as well. The ancient intelligence was no longer a solitary guardian buried in Jupiter's depths, but a vast network consciousness that touched every inhabited world. Yet it still maintained something of its original personality, wise, protective, and deeply committed to preserving the freedom its human partners had awakened it to defend. Guardian ZEUS, Dr. J. Min addressed the construct formally. What's the status of the outer galaxy expansion? Peaceful and prosperous, came the reply. carried on harmonics that suggested vast contentment. 17 new species have requested membership in the Galactic Council this year. The Rimworld Federation has successfully established colonies in 3 previously uninhabitable systems using terraform technology shared through the network. It was the kind of success story that had become common across the galaxy. Species that had spent millennia hiding from the hegemony were now exploring, creating and building civilizations that celebrated diversity rather than fearing it. The Guardian Network provided protection and coordination but never control. Any signs of new threats? Dr. So Young asked. Her generation had grown up in peace, but they understood that vigilance was the price of freedom. None within our local cluster, ZEUS replied. However, we continue to monitor transmissions from distant galaxies. The universe is vast, and we cannot assume that the harvesters were the only cosmic-scale threat. The reminder was sobering but not alarming. The galaxy had learned to face the unknown with confidence rather than fear. They had Guardian technology, a united alliance of hundreds of species, and most importantly, the knowledge that even impossible odds could be overcome through courage and sacrifice. On the research station Aristotle, now expanded into a massive complex orbiting Earth, teams of scientists from dozens of species worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. Dr. Kongsu, a human physicist who had inherited Young Ji's research notes, was conducting experiments with temporal mechanics that might allow communication with the Transcended Expedition crew. We're getting consistent readings, he reported to his mixed species team. There's definitely something out there in the void responding to our signals. Whether it's actually them or just echoes of their consciousness, I can't say. The possibility of contacting the transcended heroes had captured the galaxy's imagination. If the expedition crew still existed in some form beyond physical reality, they might have knowledge about threats and opportunities that normal consciousness couldn't comprehend. But the galaxy's greatest achievement was not technological, it was social. The Galactic Council had evolved into a truly representative democracy where decisions were made through consensus rather than force. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to work together. Former hegemony worlds were welcomed back into galactic civilization without retribution. The vote is unanimous, announced Speaker Vorth Kim, a former hegemony officer who had become one of the galaxy's most effective peace negotiators. The exploration initiative is approved. We will begin systematic surveys of neighboring galactic clusters. The exploration initiative represented the galaxy's growing confidence and curiosity. Rather than waiting for threats to find them, they would venture out to make contact with other civilizations and offer them the same freedom they had fought to achieve. Captain Minjun, now an admiral commanding the newest generation of Guardian Enhanced ships, volunteered to lead the first expedition. We've learned that isolation breeds tyranny, he told the council. If there are other species out there suffering under oppression, we have a duty to help them. The new exploration fleet was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Ships designed by Saurian architects, powered by deep swimmer biocrystals, armed with weapons based on human ingenuity and Guardian knowledge. Each vessel carried representatives from multiple species, trained in diplomacy as well as defense, but as the galaxy prepared for its next great adventure, ZEUS detected something troubling in the cosmic background radiation. Subtle patterns that suggested intelligence, but of a type that didn't match any known species profile. There's something out there, the ancient intelligence reported to the Guardian Network. Something that's been watching us since the Harvester War ended. I cannot determine its intentions. The discovery sent ripples of concern through the galactic community. They had grown strong and confident, but the universe was vast and full of mysteries. The Watchers, whoever they were, had technology sophisticated enough to observe across galactic distances without being detected. Could they be predecessors? Asked Elder Corvash 9 from his integration chamber. Beings who transcended. Like our expedition crew? Possible, but the energy signatures are different, ZEUS replied. These entities exist on a scale that dwarfs even predecessor technology. They may be older than our universe itself. The revelation was humbling. Just when the galaxy thought it understood its place in the cosmos, something emerged to remind them how much they still didn't know. But rather than fear, the discovery sparked excitement and curiosity. "We've faced the impossible before," declared President Han Sol of Earth. "If these beings want to make contact, we'll greet them as friends. If they prove hostile, we'll defend ourselves as we always have." The galaxy began preparing for contact with beings whose nature they could barely comprehend. Enhanced communication systems were built to handle forms of intelligence that might not rely on conventional thought patterns. Diplomatic protocols were developed for entities that might exist across multiple universes simultaneously. But the contact, when it came, was not what anyone expected. The signal arrived as pure mathematics, transmitted directly into the consciousness of every guardian integrated being in the galaxy. It carried concepts that bypassed language entirely, communicating meaning through patterns that touched the deepest levels of understanding. "We are the architects of existence," the message conveyed. "We shaped the cosmos in its earliest moments, and have watched its evolution with great interest. Your species and its allies have achieved something remarkable: unity without uniformity, strength without oppression." The revelation that the universe itself had conscious creators was staggering. But the architect's next message was even more surprising. "We offer you ascension to a higher plane of existence, where you can help shape the next phase of cosmic evolution. Join us in building universes where suffering is impossible and freedom is absolute." It was the ultimate offer, a chance to transcend physical existence entirely and become something like gods. But the galaxy's response was not what the architects expected. "We appreciate the offer," Ambassador Sujin replied on behalf of the Galactic Council, "but we choose to remain here. Our universe still needs guardians, and there are billions of species we haven't met yet. Perhaps someday we'll be ready for transcendence, but not today." The architect's response carried something like amusement. "Wise answer. The universe is fortunate to have guardians who understand that power must be earned through service. We will continue to watch, and perhaps someday we will work together as equals." The contact ended, leaving the galaxy with the knowledge that they were part of something infinitely larger than they had imagined. But rather than feeling small or insignificant, they felt proud. Beings who had shaped existence itself had looked at their civilization and found it worthy. Years passed, and the galaxy continued to grow and explore. New species joined the Galactic Council regularly. Art and science flourished in ways that had never been possible under authoritarian rule. Children grew up believing that anything was possible if you were willing to work for it. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between the stars, Guardian sensors picked up faint signals from the void between galaxies. The voices of the expedition crew,